It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Hello, ladies and witches across the world. Welcome to the Hint Hive, Amplifying Women's Voices, Halloween edition. I'm your host, Kelly Hint, queen bee of this hive, feminist life coach, psychotherapist, and your unapologetic guide through the mystical, the psychological, and the deeply powerful. Today, we are diving into something ancient and electric: witch wounds, reclaiming the power they tried to burn.
By the prickling of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes.
All right, my scary fellow witches, let's jump into it. So, Halloween is drenched in symbolism, right? We've got darkness, transformation, the veil thinning between worlds, but it's also about rebellion. Because once upon a time, rebellion was dangerous. And dare I add, rebellion is getting dangerous today also. But back then, women who dared to question, to heal, to lead, or to simply live outside the lines were branded as witches. And those wounds did not disappear with time. They evolved. They live in the collective nervous system of women today, shaping how we view power, confidence, and freedom. So let's start with a little history about the witch hunt that never ended, because the stories we tell about the past often explain the fears that we still carry today. So between the 15th and 18th centuries, tens of thousands of people were executed for witchcraft in Europe, and most of them were women. These so-called witches were often midwives, herbalists, widows, or women who simply didn't conform to the social script. They had knowledge of herbs, of healing, of birth and death, knowledge that frightened those in power. The witch hunts weren't just about superstition. They were about domination. They were a political, social, and psychological campaign to crush feminine autonomy. When you control a woman's image, you control her power. The witch trials told society that a woman who lived freely was a danger. That narrative did not end in the 1600s. It just changed language. Witch became crazy, hysterical, bitchy, bossy, and too much. Sound familiar? The world still fears women who are untamed. Those labels are the modern witch hunts. Subtler, but just as silencing. Think of the backlash that women like Megan Thee Stallion, Taylor Swift, female journalists, activists, and everyday women face when they step out of the line of patriarchal expectations. So I have a t-shirt that I like to wear that says, "They didn't burn witches, they burned women." It's a powerful reminder that women like me who don't follow the rules were burned at the stake. And let me tell you, every time I wear that damn shirt out in public, I get glared at by a man at least once. Because clearly, I don't know my place. But you know what? Every single time a powerful woman is mocked, minimized, or misunderstood, it's another echo of the stake's crackling flame that we suffered, that our ancestors suffered. We often think that witches are simply just characters for Halloween. but read some of the history. Read what they did. Witches were women. They weren't some mythical creature. They weren't some supernatural being with their cauldrons bubbling, making spells. They were women. And that's why I am so passionate about talking about this subject. You know, even if we can't name it, we feel it. The witch wound, and witch being WITCH, is a term used to describe the collective trauma that women inherited from generations of persecution for their independence and intuition. It's that quiet voice in your head that whispers, "Don't speak up. Don't outshine. Don't rock the boat." It's the fear of success because it might isolate you. It's apologizing for your emotions, your ambition, your brilliance. It's fearing your own power because somewhere deep in your DNA, you were taught that power could get you burned. The witch wound shows up in workplaces when women play small to seem agreeable. It shows up in relationships when we shrink our needs to avoid conflict. It shows up in our bodies when we ignore our intuition and call it overreacting. But every time you trust that inner knowing, every time you say no without guilt, every single time you take up space, you are breaking the spell. You are healing that ancient wound. You know, in the last few decades, something incredible has happened. Women have started reclaiming the word witch, from demonized to empowered. And let me tell you, I am here for it. The archetype once used to shame has become a symbol of self-trust and freedom. The modern witch is not about spells and cauldrons, though, let's be honest, candles and herbs are kind of fun, right? Instead, it's about connection to nature, to intuition, to sisterhood. When women gather in circles, practicing moon rituals, study astrology, or light candles with intention, we are doing something radical. We are remembering. We're remembering that healing doesn't always come from institutions or hierarchies. Sometimes it comes from within, from ritual, from self-awareness, from energy. This reclamation is political. It's spiritual. It is psychological. Because when women remember that they are powerful, they become unstoppable. They become creators of their own stories instead of victims of old ones. And let me tell you, the patriarchy does not fear the occult. It fears women who are no longer afraid of themselves. You know, it's funny. During the pandemic, so this was back in, I want to say, around March or April of 2020. I decided I needed some extra stuff to do because I wasn't getting out and about, right? We were all locked in the houses and all that fun stuff. And I decided to look into aromatherapy. Some of you who have listened to past episodes already know this because I've actually done an episode on aromatherapy. But I really got into it because I just started. Well, I shouldn't say started. I had been losing trust in the government and in Western medicine even for a long time. Not in a way of like, oh, vaccines are bad. Nothing like that. But I wanted to adopt more of a nature first philosophy Now, again, don't get me wrong. I am like huge. I believe in science, but I also believe in nature because, believe it or not, mental health tip of the day, two things can be possible at the same time, right? So I wanted to reconnect with nature, and the pandemic gave me a fabulous opportunity to do that because I was outside more. I was alone more outside. I was reconnecting with nature, and I just thought, you know what? Maybe there's something to this herb stuff, to this aromatherapy stuff. And so I decided to take some courses. I took courses on anatomy and physiology, on chemistry, and aromatherapy. And I became a certified aromatherapist. And at first, so like as I would mix up different things, my husband started telling me that I was a witch. He's like, you're mixing up your witchy potions. And the reason why he called me a witch is because the stuff that I was mixing up was working. I made all of these pain lotions and pain salves and all of these. I made lotions for anxiety that helped calm your nerves, like all this fun stuff. And so part of getting my certification was I had to do test studies. Because again, it was very scientifically based. I had to develop a hypothesis and I had to test the hypothesis through research subjects and experiments and all this fun stuff. And I had to like gather data. And so I had, I want to say 6 or 7, I can't remember. It was so long ago for my brain. I had either like 6 or 7 people that gave me their feedback on the various concoctions that I came up with. And my very, very, very skeptical husband was one of them. And I did a pain cream for him because he was having a lot of pain in his knees at the time. And he was shocked that it worked. And that's when he started calling me a witch. Because I'd go up to my craft room and I would do all sorts of research on different properties and compounds of essential oils and herbs. I made my own trauma oil out of dried herbs. Like I've done all kinds of crazy stuff. And for me, it was just simply finding an alternative to popping pills, right? Like if I have an ache or a pain, I don't want to always run to the Advil because I feel like that is going to destroy my liver. So I wanted to get closer in touch with nature. And it worked. Even though I was skeptical, because of course I tried stuff on myself first and I'm like, is this just like a placebo effect? And so when I was trying it out on other people, I was getting honest feedback and it was working. And so it got me thinking. And also, so at the time I was watching the series Outlander, and the main female character, her name is Claire, and she like goes back in time. And so she does all sorts of things with these medicinal herbs. She comes up with all these, what some people called potions. She was accused of being a witch on the show. And it really got me thinking about how, and I think if I remember correctly, don't hold me to this one, but I think Outlander, when she went back in time, she went into maybe the 1800s. I can't remember. But anyway, as I was watching the series, it just really got me thinking about, wow, here's this woman with medicinal knowledge because she was a doctor. She was a nurse and then she ended up going back and being a doctor. She had all of this scientific information. And back in ancient times, when she went back in time, she was accused of being a witch for being able to concoct something that helped someone relieve pain. And it just really made me connect with the atrocities that were committed against women simply because they had certain types of knowledge. And it inspired me to just keep my connection with nature going. And if that makes me a witch, well, then damn it, I'm a witch because I believe in the healing power of nature. I also believe, and some of you might not like to hear this word come out of my mouth, but I believe that God put everything we need on this earth. And I believe it's up to us to figure out. And again, whether you believe in a higher power or not does not matter to me because I don't judge other people's belief systems. Unless you believe that women are less than, then I think you're crap. But anyway, even if you do not believe in a higher power or creationism, if you believe solely in evolution, some of us believe in a combination of all of it, there's no denying that nature supplies us with so many things. I mean, food is medicine. Food is fuel. Food is necessary for our bodies, and nature provides that. So why is it so witchy that we would want to connect healing with nature? And this is some of the really cool stuff about being a woman is that our brains are geared to think a little bit differently than men. It's not to say that we all fit certain stereotypes and we have to be put in boxes. It is simply that our DNA is a little bit different between genders. And I also believe that that is changing and evolving as time goes on. But that's another story for another day. Anyway, back to the witches. I just really think that it is a cool thing to tap into nature and community and sisterhood. I mean, if you look back just even on the titles of these episodes in this podcast, there's a lot of stuff about that. And I just hope that maybe anyone listening will also get inspired to reconnect with nature and to own the word witch. Take it back. Take that power back. Because we all have witch wounds and we need to heal them. So how do we start to heal this wound? To move from inherited fear to embodied power. It's not about being mystical for the sake of it. I'm not telling everyone to go out and get a crystal ball and start practicing witchcraft. This episode is not about witchcraft. It is about women being labeled and burned as witches and what we can do about it to reconnect to where we originated from, to who we were. It's about learning to live unapologetically, rooted in self-trust. So let's talk action steps, because you know I love giving away nuggets for you to practice. So this first step, and I believe this is inspired by one of my heroes, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the lovely, the unfortunately deceased, very powerful woman. Speak even when your voice shakes. That is one of my favorite quotes that I've ever heard, because your voice is sacred. Every single time you tell your truth, you disrupt centuries of silence. When you speak, you create ripples that reach far beyond the moment. Think of movements like Me Too or the courageous testimonies of women who challenged systemic injustice. Those voices cracked the sky open for millions more. Speaking up is both a personal act of liberation and a collective spell of transformation that dismantles fear and awakens solidarity. The second step, and this is another important one, trust your intuition. Intuition is not emotion. It is intelligence. It's ancient, embodied wisdom. A compass gifted by generations of women before you. Think of leaders like Malala Yousafzai or activists who listened to that inner nudge to speak when the world told them to stay quiet. They are the heroes that we should be looking up to. Because when you act from your intuition, you are reclaiming that ancestral power and aligning with your deepest truth. The next step in this one is so important and such a tough one, especially in today's day and age because of our aversion to be among one another. Step number 3 is to build community. Witch hunts worked by isolating women. Healing happens in circles, in friendships that celebrate your power, not compete with it. Think of the women-led collectives and support groups born out of feminist and social justice movements. They prove that connection is not just comforting, it's revolutionary. When women unite, fear loses its grip and change begins. I once worked with a woman, and we were only able to see each other a few times. And man, I think about her all the time. She was one of those OG feminists from back in the day. And man, she inspired me probably a lot more than I inspired her. She talked to me about being in these circles, these communities with women where they empowered one another, back in the 60s. And I'm like, oh, if I could be a time traveler, I would want to go and sit in on those circles. Even there were drum circles and meditation gatherings. It just sounded so amazing to be among powerful women. And when I say powerful, I don't mean that they were famous or rich or anything like that. They were powerful because they knew exactly who the hell they were, and they embraced it, and they shined bright. Man, all right. Does anyone want to do some sort of sisterhood circle with me? Because I'm really feeling it. But seriously, build that community. Build your sisterhood. That's actually one of the things I'm trying to do in my very small Facebook group for this podcast. I'm trying to build that sisterhood. I want more of you in it because we can be powerful together. We can fight whatever is coming our way if we're together. All right, getting off track here. Let me get back to these action steps. Step number 4, create personal rituals. It might sound a little woo-woo, but seriously, rituals anchor us in intention. Light a candle before you journal. Leave your phone behind and walk in nature. Honor your rhythms. Every ritual says, I am in charge of my own energy. Think of how women across cultures have created ceremonies, from tea rituals in Japan to red tent gatherings, all designed to honor cycles, connection, and self-awareness. Your rituals are your declaration of sovereignty. And I really, really encourage you to start coming up with some of your own rituals. It brings a sense of peace and power like no other. And I say that from personal and professional experience. All right, the final action step, number 5, release shame. Yep. Shame has been the patriarchy's favorite weapon for centuries. Whether it's about your body, your sexuality, your ambition, or emotions. Refuse to carry what isn't yours. Let that shame burn. Metaphorically, not literally. and rise from the ashes, just like a phoenix. Think of artists, writers, and creators like Lizzo or Glennon Doyle, who use their platforms to normalize imperfection and joy. Every act of self-acceptance chips away at a system built on women's self-doubt. Healing the witch wound is about remembrance. Remembering that power is your birthright, not your punishment. All right, witches, now it is time for our quote of the week. And this week's quote comes from Mona Chollet, apologies if I mispronounced your last name, author of In Defense of Witches. Mona states, "The witch is a symbol of the woman who dares to be older, to be intelligent, to be sexual, to be self-sufficient, to seek knowledge, to care for others without serving them, and above all, to be free." Ooh, amen, sister. Let that one resonate for a moment. To be free. That's the true magic. It's not in potions or spells, but in the audacity to be fully yourself in a world that still profits from your doubt. All right, my friends, as we close this Halloween episode, I want you to take a moment to think about the women who came before you. The healers, the mothers, the rebels, the midwives, the visionaries, all the women who were silenced for being powerful. You, ladies, are their continuation. Their dreams live through your courage. So tonight, on this Halloween night, as candles flicker and the air feels a little more electric, honor them and honor yourself. Stand in your truth. Speak your magic out loud. The fire they tried to destroy lives in your words, your work, your boundaries, and your self-love. This Halloween, remember, being too much, too loud, or too ambitious is not a curse. It's your magic, raw, divine, untamed. You are not what they feared. You are what they couldn't kill. As always, thank you for joining me on the Hint Hive Amplifying Women's Voices. If this episode lit a spark for you, share it with a woman who needs to be reminded of her power. And come join our Facebook Hive, a space for women to connect, heal, and rise together. Until next time, my fellow witches, stay wild, stay free, and never forget, the power they tried to burn still burns brightly within you. This podcast is powered by Kelly Hint Empowerment Coaching, as well as Kelly M. Hint LMHC and The Cranky Counselor. To find out more about coaching services, head over to CoachKellyHint.com. If you'd like to know more about the psychotherapy services I offer to individuals within the state of New York, you can check out KellyMHint.com. And if you'd like to learn more about aromatherapy, you can check out TheCrankyCounselor.com.